Yo, what's good YouTube? It's boardzy, and these are the best gaming mice from 2023. This is just the Ambi Mouse edition, and it's a top 10-ish list. You know, there's going to be more than 10 mice mentioned, and it's not going to be in any particular order, but as the video progresses, the mice are going to get better. And if you're interested in ergos, I already made a video about a week ago covering over 10 ergos that released this year. So yeah, 2023 was a revolutionary year for mice, and everything is just getting incredibly good. So there are going to be more minor differences between some of these, but you know, I'm just recapping the year in mice. So we're going to start out with some large ambi mice, which were just kind of meh for me. Like the Viper V3 Hyperspeed, it is a really good mouse on paper. It's a larger shape. It's really nothing close to a Viper, but I just don't know a single person who uses it, and that has to factor in for something. Like, it's just an 80-gram large mouse from Razer, and it's like, yeah, it's a cool design, it has a battery, but just nobody uses it. And I also want to include, like, an honorable mention, the Asus ROG Harpe Ace, which I wanted to include, but I just couldn't find. So, you know, I feel like that also says something about a mouse. I probably have not touched that thing in 10 months, but I just know it's a large, kind of like palm grip shape that some people will like. And yeah, those are more honorable mentions that I really never use just to please the people with large hands who are inevitably going to complain about the rest of this list. And yeah, next up is going to be the Ninjutso Sora. This mouse on paper, again, really good, 4K compatible, $120, I believe. The mouse is under 50 grams. It's a small claw grip shape, and the shape is just where it falls flat for me. And especially a lot of these mice that have quite literally the same exact internals, the shape and just in-hand feeling are going to be the difference. And this is just a small XM1 like shape that just never clicked for me. It was always a bit wider than the Pulsar X2 Mini, which is like my godsend shape for fingertip. And for claw, it was really just too small for me. It doesn't have like strong enough backup presence for it to be a small mouse that just really works for me. But if you do have smaller hands, it's certainly an option to consider. The optical implementation does feel a little bit hollow, but they're certainly spammable. Really nothing wrong with the mouse. It's just not my favorite shape. Now I'm going to talk about the Vaxee NP01S wireless. And this is an interesting one because I was like really enjoying this when I first started using it because it was wireless from Vaxee and it was a shape I actually enjoy. And this isn't quite an ambi mouse, as you can tell. Like, if you look at the base, it's definitely off ambi, but I wouldn't go as far as to call it like an aggressive ergo design. But if you have a right-handed claw grip, it's going to feel just like somewhat optimized compared to an average like flat-sided mouse, I guess you could say. But yeah, this is a heavier mouse coming in the mid 60, I think high 60 gram range, and the side buttons are kind of where it falls flat for me because it just has this really like basic side button design. They are kind of catered towards the back, and it's just not something that I consistently wound up using in Fortnite. And could I definitely like, if I had to main this mouse forever, it would not be the end of the world. It obviously has a really premium build and click implementation because it's Vaxee. But yeah, the side buttons and the weight are just where it falls short compared to my top options at this point. But yeah, if you just are looking for something a bit heavier, I think that this is an incredible shape to try out. Vaxee mice in general. I think the XE also released in 2023. That's another large mouse to consider, but not something I really put any time on. And yeah, Vaxee's mice do come in at $120, similar price point to Zowie, but a bit more expensive than the typical 1K polling rate implementations, but they also have a 4K dongle launching sometime next year. But yeah, I guess next up can be Endgame gear, because after a long time, they just kind of gave up with the XM2W, but they did come out with a new banger shape in the OP1 Wii, and they released the XM2 Wii as well. And the Wii, of course, stands for Wireless Essential, which just means it does have a 3370, but these Endgame gear mice are not expensive. They're not over $90, so it's not like they're really taxing you for the last generation sensor. But really, at the end of the day, these are premium mice and pretty unique shapes. And as a lot of you know, the Lamzu Atlantis is essentially an XM1 clone, so that those shapes are very similar, but it's just a totally different feeling in hand. Lamzu obviously prioritizes low weight, but there's just a much more solid feel when you use an Endgame gear mouse. And the OP1 Wii is, to me, a fingertip shape. I don't know how small your hands would have to be to consistently like enjoy this for claw grip, but it follows fingertip principles very well. It's an extremely thin shape. Where I place my fingers, the sides feel extremely flat. But what really ruins this mouse for me is just how heavy the clicks are. Like, compared to the G Pro X Superlights opticals, which people were saying were heavy, these feel like significantly heavier. And I know they do have this pack, where you can replace the switches, but I just never got around to doing that. And this mouse is just a little bit heavier for a mouse of this size as well for fingertip, not too heavy to use. But yeah, this is really just like an incredible coating, incredible build quality, but super fucking heavy clicks. So it's just like, the mouse just feels in general a bit more stiff than something light like the WO mouse or an Ultralight X, even the Viper Mini Sig. But yeah, Endgame gear mice just really have a special feeling. I personally have not been putting a ton of time on the XM2 Wii. If they ever release an XM2W, maybe I'll try it out again. But I've just kind of stopped using those wider shapes for claw grip. And that serves as a good segue into Lamzu's mice, and they've actually come out with a lot of stuff this year, from the OG Atlantis 4K, the Atlantis Mini 4K, and the Lamzu Thorn, which I covered in the Ergo Roundup, and then also the Lamzu Maya. Yeah, Lamzu sort of has something for every hand size. If you have medium to large hands and claw grip, then the standard size Atlantis is going to make sense. If you have like really small hands or just claw grip and enjoy these like much lower feeling mice, then the Atlantis Mini does have potential for fingertip. It's just not one of my go-to shapes, but it does have incredibly low button height. And the Maya is just, it falls somewhere in between, and it's just an awkward feeling shape for me. I'm willing to admit that I did have a bad first batch copy. I just haven't gotten my hands on another yet. But the shape itself is medium profile. There's not a lot of back hump presence. Some have been saying it's like a mini GPX, but it's just really not. It's just nowhere near as flat as the GPXs, and it's obviously part of what makes the GPX so universal is the size, the way it goes into your palm, and there's really just none of that on the Maya. But I have seen people with smaller hands who claw grip saying very good things about this shape. The coating on this red, like first batch copy, is honestly horrible, but it seems like even the other colors were tuned up a bit nicer. It's just not a good shape for fingertip. And yeah, it just sounds weird to say, but it's a shape that lacks any character. You see, there's like no comfort grooves on the clicks whatsoever. The button height is pretty high compared to a lot of other like smaller, low profile mice. And yeah, if you just grip this, it feels like the sides are always like pushing you outwards. It doesn't actually get narrower where you grip the mouse. It's a weird shape that like is kind of exotic in that it's not similar to others. But I also don't think it's a great shape. But then again, people with smaller hands than me have been enjoying it more, it seems. But yeah, at 45 grams and under $100, if you have smaller hands, it's definitely worth considering. And I would say that I do enjoy using this mouse more than something like the Ninjutso Sora, even though that is a bit lower. That mouse just flares out super weird towards the back. I just don't enjoy the hump whatsoever. But next up is going to be Gwolves, really just the HTX 4K. And I didn't mean for this to be like a brand by brand like mouse roundup, but that's just ultimately how it wound up working out. Gwolves did not release too many mice this year. They did a lot of like updates to their previous models, but their HTX 4K was their big mouse. And again, this is just not a mouse that worked well for me. It's super low profile and flat, so if you do have large hands, I just don't see like how you're going to be consistently pulling off a claw grip on this. But I mean, if you do aggressive claw and believe enough, I guess anything will be possible. For fingertip grip, it's a shape that I've had numerous complaints about. Really, the issue towards the front, it is too low. It doesn't feel like it's a mouse when I'm gripping it. The weight balancing feels super fucking off, and when I put my fingers back to where it feels comfortable, the sides, it just flares out a bit too much at the bottom, so it just feels like I'm gripping at a very wide point with my thumb, and then the button height is too high due to how aggressively the mouse slopes down. The clicks themselves are zippy switches, and this batch I have is still pretty low quality feeling, but I don't know if they've made updates since then. One thing that's really cool about Gwolves mice is the base. There's also a somewhat high sensor position on this mouse, but I don't feel like I've ever felt I've taken advantage of that. So yeah, Gwolves is a company where I've heard that they have some like sub 30 gram full-size mice coming up, but it seems like they've just been cooking a lot at $170 for the 4K version of this. Even though it comes in at like 41, 43 grams, whatever it is, I would definitely recommend going for a WO mouse at 140 if you are like getting a fingertip grip mouse. But yeah, I mean, this is a hard mouse to really hate on, but it's just something that did not work for me. I've tried it so much for fingertip, but I just enjoy other options more. Next up is going to be the Pulsar X2H and the Pulsar X2v2 series. These are both the mini versions on my desk, as that's what I prefer. But yeah, Pulsar's also released the ES versions of these. I covered the the X Lite V3 and the Ergo Roundup. But yeah, the X2H is just a high hump version of the X2 with more curved sides. That's really the easiest way to explain it, but if you want a high profile aggressive back hump, that's what you're going to get. And the mini version does feel like very small in general, but then just a super aggressive back hump, and you can just see it in the design. But yeah, that's just not the style of shape I prefer. The standard X2H just feels very wide and bulky. There's like no room for me to micro adjust with it. But if you do have like just larger hands and want something that caters itself to a relaxed grip, then that's where the X2H comes in. The X2v2 medium, again, that's just like a shape where it feels just a bit larger than it needs to feel. That's why they have the mini version if you prefer smaller feeling mice. So that's just kind of what I go with. As you can see, no cap in my wrap. I just pulled out my X2v2. You can see how much dust is on it. And yeah, the medium size is more similar to the G Pro Superlight just in terms of mouse size, but it's going to be a lower profile feeling mouse, and especially with like flatter sides if you do want to fingertip it. But yeah, the X2 Mini is a shape that I've just put a ton of time on since it came out, and it's just always really clicked for me for fingertip. I also have no problem claw gripping it, but depending on the style of mouse you prefer, the X2H might just be a better fit for you. I feel like coating matters a lot for claw grip, especially if the hump isn't super prominent towards the back. For actually like maintaining a consistent grip, and I feel like Pulsar is very solid with that. Their optical switches, this is the one QC issue that I have on any of my newer Pulsar mice. When I click the mouse for like the first time in the session, due to the adhesive, I believe, the clicks just feel sticky, and then from there it's perfectly fine and light, really no issues with the click feeling or implementation. But it's that first time in the session. I know other people who have had this issue, but yeah, other than that, these mice are truly built like fucking tanks. I haven't really talked too much about build quality in this video, but most of these mice, just there's really nothing to worry about. But yeah, for the low 50-gram weights that Pulsar mice are at, like, I've been very impressed with the updated X2v2's build quality. Very interested if they're still like, Jesus, I don't know what happened there, but if they still have the plagued QC that they did in the past. Also, shout out to me, in 2023, the Pulsar X2 boardzy edition did release. Just remember that. But yeah, I think that covers Pulsar mice. I mean, they are a tried and true option under $100. Of course, 4K compatible like almost every mouse in this video. And now it is time for the big mouse of the year candidate, the G Pro X Superlight V2. And yeah, in all seriousness, the Superlight 2 had the community torn because a lot of people, it's an easy mouse to shit on. You know, Logitech did not really do anything major. This is more of a revision than a real overhaul of the Superlight. For example, there's optical switches, a new sensor that allows up to 2000 hertz polling rate. I believe the 4K stuff was a fake leak, if anybody is going to bring that up. But yeah, it's a slightly better Superlight. It just is what it is. And for some reason, I would presume just due to how much I use the GPX1, this is still my go-to mouse for claw. It's just like the most comfortable. It's a pretty much perfect design in my opinion. And yeah, it has shortcomings. It's just the benchmark for me. It's still like one of my most used mice. There is the good point, though, of the fact that there's a $60 difference between this, the Superlight 2, and the standard version, like on US Amazon at the moment. The price differences vary, but is it like a $60 better mouse? I don't know what that really means, but I would probably say no. But at the same time, I have not touched my GPX1 since getting the updated version, and I did a small weight reduction to mine, removing the magnets and the power play puck. I got it down to 57 grams, and yeah, at that weight for a medium-sized mouse, just the Superlight, it feels incredible in hand, and I'm not afraid to say that I like the G Pro Superlight. I did have, funny enough, one of the like most prominent names in Valorant message me though, saying that he had Superlight creaking on like 8 straight units or something. So I don't know, it did seem like the QC was like, it kind of went under the radar that it was a mess on this, but all of my copies were pretty much exactly pristine, what I expect from a Superlight, aside from one which had some battery rattle, but you know, it is what it is. I'm tired of talking about the Superlight. It's fucking good. It is the safest design. If you don't like it though, you're not going to like the Superlight V2. And now, drumroll, it is time for the big three. Mice that I have really been shilling to no end recently. The WL mouse, the Final Mouse ULX, and the Viper Mini Signature Edition. These all released this year, and they've really just moved fingertip mice so far forward, just lightweight mice in general. And yeah, I guess while I'm here, I can make an impromptu top 5 mice of 2023 in terms of what I actually put the most time on. Obviously, ULX WO mouse are more recent releases. But yeah, these are honestly my top 5 when it comes to just what day in and day out I'm testing the most. Obviously, being a reviewer, I just have like 20 mice on my desk at the moment, so it's not like I have a main of any kind. But yeah, this is the type of design that I clearly enjoy most, and this is, of course, only ambi mice. But yeah, ULX WO mouse and Viper Mini Sig are all non-plastic mice that just move the mark, in my opinion. Some releases just fall flat, and these just really didn't. The WO mouse obviously came out of nowhere. People thought it was going to be a scam, but it is a legit 40-gram final mouse inspired shape. The ULX, of course, is an actual final mouse coming in a few grams lighter, made of carbon composite. There is a $50 difference, and the final mouse is still at the moment being sold in the drops format. There is a drop in a few days, though, with all of the sizes, though, which is very shocking. Those will be 2024 mice. But yeah, with the WO mouse, if you just want to go out and order like the best lightweight mouse today, I feel like this is probably your best option. The Viper Mini Signature is $290, which is just absolutely ridiculous. I have more quality issues on this than I do on my ULX or WO mouse. And yeah, this does come in at 49 grams as well. I'm not going to say that I hate using it or that it just feels significantly worse, but it's just, it would be the third mouse that I would personally buy out of these 3. If you do have all of the money in the world and just want to try the Viper Mini Sig, I don't think it will disappoint you though. But $300 for a mouse, like there's a fucking Xbox Series S available for like $150. Like, what are we doing once we get to a certain point? But Razer's wireless tech is obviously incredibly good. The construction on this mouse, insanely premium. The clicks are tensioned well. So it is a very premium product, but still at $300, I don't feel like you're getting double the mouse experience you are on the WO mouse. And yeah, a crazy thing with the WO mouse is how willing they are to accept criticism. Like the future batches of these mice pretty much implement everything that I've said. They're actually changing from the Omron opticals, which just have a bit of stiffness. Some people seem to really enjoy the lightness, but just due to the rigidity of the click piece itself, the rebound isn't too fast, and there are just minor inconveniences I noticed. But they are going to switch to Huano blue shell pink dots, which should be very interesting. And the side button wobble they have supposedly addressed. I think they're going to even tune the weight balancing a little bit. So yeah, for some reason, whenever I say that I just marginally prefer my ULX and that feels more refined than the WO mouse, people call me a shill, people freak out, but WO mouse themselves seem like they understand the criticism, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. But yeah, as I've mentioned, my ULX is pretty much fucking perfect. I'm coming up on having it for a month actually, so there will be an update at some point. I don't think this unit is going to beat the reviewer unit allegations, but I mean, once it holds up for like a decent amount of actual like hard use, you just gotta say that the mouse is fucking solid. It seems like the remaining batch 1 units don't have the side flexing issue, which was really the only thing. That was obviously inexcusable, but my unit did not have that, so it was just an incredible fucking feeling mouse. The clicks are extremely light, sensor performance is good, side buttons are better than most other lightweight mice, and yeah, for fingertip at sub 40 grams on a medium-sized mouse, I've really enjoyed the ULX. Definitely one of the releases of 2023. And you can really feel however you want about Final Mouse, but this just has not left my desk. It is my favorite feeling lightweight mouse in hand since it released, and yeah, that's really all I gotta say. Even the battery life does feel better than most other 4K implementations, and I don't even know what that comes down to. And yeah, that's gonna about do it. I feel like I really did cover all of the good ambi mice that released. A lot of them were similar in the small, like claw grip size range. And yeah, there will be a best budget mouse of 2023 video before the year ends. So don't you guys worry. I was thinking about doing some budget honorable mentions, but I'm like, fuck it. You know, China mice took over this year, so we might as well just make a full budget mouse video. But let me know what you guys think of the best mice of 2023. Any thoughts, what your personal go-to mouse is at the moment. But yeah, this is just a crazy video. Like, how long have I been recording? 20 minutes? Just all of these mice, and there are plenty more that didn't make the cut. What a year for gaming mice. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and peace.